Welcome, bienvenidos a todos to UC Santa Barbara's Office of Admissions Parent and Supporters webinar series. Next steps for our admitted students. You're admitted. Your child is admitted. Your family member is admitted. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we have our Associate Director for School Services, Javon Arias Edwards, who will present all the things you need to know. So with that in mind, I turn it over to my colleague, Javon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, my fearless leader, Kuka Acosta, our Director of Admissions. As introduced, my name is Javon Arias Edwards, Associate Director of School Services. And welcome, 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 family, parents, supporters, and students that are joining to our parent session. This is the next steps for our UC admitted students. And at this point, we rolled out decisions both for our first year and our transfer students. So that means it's now to talk through the steps to enrollment. Know that I'm going to be talking through various different timelines, and those timelines might be specific to first year admitted students. They might be specific to transfer admitted students. So please know that everything I say, yes, is getting recorded. So hopefully I say everything correctly, but know that the information that you need to succeed, my students out there and parents in support of your students, is going to be on our website. Yes, our web pages have all of the documentation that you need to better understand what those steps to enrollment is and the conditions of admission. So during this session, I know families out there, you have so many questions, and I'm only one person, and I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can. But as you heard Kuka, she's going to be supporting with the Q&A and getting to some of your questions during this presentation, and as well as my colleagues, Kennedy Reason, our Assistant Director of High School Services, and our admissions counselor, Eureka Chavez. So as you're asking questions during my presentation, know that some of your questions will be asked. Now, I already told you, I'm one person. I can't know it all, but I really, really try. We're going to talk all things financial aid. We're going to talk orientation. We're going to talk housing. And know that within UCSB, unlike at a high school, it's going to be in different departments. The Office of Admissions is here to welcome your student, and we're going to liaison your student to different departments who are the specialists, the SMEs, the subject matter experts in that field. And so if I say, I'm sorry, I might not know the answer to that particular question, I'm going to refer you to financial aid. I'm going to refer you to orientation. Know that I will give you as much information that's in my purview, but I will also, of course, share the resources that you need so that you know who to contact. Once again, welcome UC Santa Barbara newly admitted students. You saw the confetti when you opened up your admission decision. My students out there, parents, you were likely sitting in support with those students, and you were recording those decisions as they were opening them. So we're really excited to welcome our students this fall. And this session is going to be jam-packed, as I mentioned, but I want you to know that we've really dedicated a lot of resources to making sure that parents have an understanding of their next steps. Yes, parents, next steps, mainly for your students. And so I hope that you are nudging your students along the way, taking in that information and being able to support them through their journey to get to UC Santa Barbara. Now, with the resources that we've created, yes, you have this parent chat for steps to enrollment, but we've had other parent webinars. And so on the screen, you're taking a look at different campus departments that have come in to talk to you, parents and supporters out there. We had a housing overview for our first year admitted students back in April, early April, April 2nd. That session was recorded. That session is on our UCSB admissions YouTube. And I'm going to plug that in again and again and again. All of our past webinars and chats, for the most part, have been recorded. If you have questions about the student health insurance plan, i.e. SHIP, well, student health came in and did a presentation and it is recorded. Same thing with financial aid and orientation. So what's coming up next? Well, you're currently in the steps to enrollment session. We do have on May 5th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time a transfer parent open chat. Yes, my transfer supporters and parents out there, we have an open chat specifically going to dive into the questions that you might have pertaining to your newly admitted transfer student. On May 6th, we are going to have at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time transfer campus housing. Yes, we originally had a campus housing overview on April 2nd. That was really catered and dedicated to our first year admits. But for our transfer students, we have a dedicated campus housing session on May 6th again. And then May 7th, for 4 p.m., we will have the Freshman Summer Start Program, also known as FSSP. I'm going to talk briefly on that particular program, but this is really a great way for my newly admitted freshman students to be able to come in over the summer, take a little bit of UCSB coursework, and then smoothly transition into the fall quarter. Freshman Summer Start Program specifically to, yep, you guessed it, freshmen. We also have the Transfer Edge program, similar summer session opportunity for transfer students to come in before the fall quarter starts. I say all this to say, yes, the resources, some of them are on demand on our YouTube channel, again, at UCSB for me. And then some of them are coming up. So I'm going to encourage you to register for some of those upcoming sessions. The last thing I'll mention on this slide, on May 6th at 5 p.m., that transfer campus housing session, while not necessarily dedicated for parents, you're more than welcome to come and sit in and watch this session with your transfer student. Transfer students will be able to register for that session on their UCSB applicant portal. Speaking of UCSB applicant portal, you are taking a look at our UCSB applicant portal. And now you don't know this, your students probably didn't know this, but this is a brand new portal for us this year, and we're really excited about the design and the simplicity of the portal so that students can easily navigate through some of their steps to enrollment, to understand what documents may or may not be required, to go through some frequently asked questions. And so if you haven't gotten a chance to sit with your student and take a look at the portal, I'm going to encourage you to do so because we, the Office of Admissions, are telling students what those steps to enrollment will be. What are their steps that they need to take depending on the stage that they're in. I'm going to be working with two different stages because we have two different statuses of students at this point. I have my freshman students and I have my transfer students. And with freshman students at this point, some students are admitted but have yet to SIR. By the way, the SIR deadline for first year students is May 1st, so it is coming up. On the other end, I have my transfer students who just received their admission decision last week, and they have some time to decide up until June 1st, as you see on the screen. So when students are in the admitted student stage, they're going to have some checklist items that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I want you to take a look at the screen and know that there are going to be certain tabs that are going to be very important for your student. Yes, you are here. You are here because your student has likely been admitted to UC Santa Barbara. And so they're going to be able to see their admission status on our UCSB applicant portal, as well as the major in which they were admitted into and the college. They are going to see their SIR deadline. This example here is for our first year freshman student that got admitted. And they're also going to see information about residency, whether or not they are determined to be a California resident for tuition purposes. This is one of those conversations where the Office of Admissions, i.e., me, does not determine residency. We do not determine a residency for tuition. That is going to be through our Office of the Registrar. So if there are any residency questions, I'm going to recommend that you're contacting our residency deputy at, you guessed it, residency deputy at ucsb.edu. Now, let's talk steps. If a student has been admitted, which your students again have at this stage, they're going to have a few steps to complete, a few tasks to review. And these tasks at the admitted student level are really some information that they need to complete if they are planning to join the UCSB community. And once they join the UCSB community by raising their hand and saying, yes, I would like to commit to coming to UCSB, and they've submitted their statement of intent to register by that May 1 or June 1 deadline, at that point, they're going to have more tasks to complete. So know that this webpage might change depending on where the student is at. Are they admitted but haven't committed? Well, they are going to have some tasks, and if they're committed, then they're going to have those additional tasks to complete. Right now on the screen, you're taking a look at a student that has yet to submit their SIR. So they have yet to SIR to come to UCSB to commit. So that's one of their tasks. Do they want to come to UCSB? Additional tasks are going to include that they're acknowledging their financial aid information. We get this question quite frequently, and so if you have this question or your student has this question of where they can find their financial aid, I'm going to talk briefly on financial aid information, but know that they will be able to view their financial aid information if they're eligible to receive federal or state aid and they've completed the FAFSA or the CADA applications. They should have their aid package ready to go and viewable on the UCSB applicant portal. They can click on acknowledge their financial aid information to view that aid offer. Let's continue forward because I'm again going to talk about this again, financial aid and steps to enrollment and completing the SIR. But let's go ahead and talk about what steps students should be taking at this point and what steps can you take. Steps to enrollment, I'm gonna be honest with you. There is a good amount of steps. And before a student actually decides to commit to coming to UCSB, I'm going to encourage that that student and you as a parent or supporter are taking a look at our steps to enrollment webpage because it's going to lay out all of the steps that students should be considering at this point as an admitted student. I already talked about reviewing financial aid. We want the students also to review the conditions of admission based on their status. We have a conditions of admission page for freshman students and a conditions of admission page for transfer students. And I'm going to talk on those conditions of admission because students that are admitted, they are provisionally admitted. It is conditional. They have to meet the contractual obligations, if you will, to come and enroll fully and matriculate to UCSB. Those obligations are, yeah, they're submitting their SIR, but they're also submitting official documents like transcripts and exams, and everything that they reported in the UC application is indeed correct. So know that that admission is conditional until we finalize admissions and reviewing all of students' documentation. And that typically happens in early summer into June and July. We're going to encourage students to visit UCSB if they haven't gotten a chance already. We do offer campus presentations and tours Monday through Friday, and we do have a few presentations and tours on select Saturdays, so a few more Saturdays in the month of May. So if your student or you have not gotten a chance to view our beautiful UCSB campus, that's one of the things that students should be considering before they actually say, yes, I would like to commit. If students and yourselves are not able to come to UCSB in person, we do have a lot of virtual opportunities to better understand what UCSB has to offer in terms of resources, in terms of campus organizations and clubs, in terms of academic departments. And we hosted our virtual open house mid-March all the way through mid-April. And there's a lot of recordings, again, yep, plugging in our UCSB admissions YouTube channel because that is where all of our recorded content is available. Now, driving home again and again and again, those steps to enrollment and the SIR deadlines for first year students, it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow. So if your student hasn't accepted or declined their offer, well, they have to take action May 1st. And any inaction, i.e., they have not said yes, but they also have not said no, well, that will mean that they are not coming if they haven't told us that they are by that May 1st deadline. Same conversation will go for transfers come June 1st. Now, once a student actually SIRs, we're now looking here on the screen of accepting your offer of admission. At that point, well, students need to establish their net ID. And this is ultimately a way for students to be able to have their student ID, to be able to log into different systems that UCSB as a campus has. A part of creating a net ID, students will need to enroll in our multi-factor authentication. This is via the Duo app. So that means that they have to download a Duo app so that they can have that two-step verification so their information is secure. Once they've established a net ID, they're now able to access the rest of some of their steps to enrollment, including completing a housing application, also including registering for orientation. The net ID and establishing that net ID is really essential for students because they also are going to be able to now have access to their U mail, the UCSB U mail. So by creating their net ID, they're now able to receive some of the campus email updates. So it's going to be twofold. Office of Admissions is still going to send them emails via their personal email address that we have on file. But then once students enroll and set up their net ID, they're going to start receiving emails from campus departments and campus resources. So please know that students need to be monitoring their emails because we are notifying them of certain things that they need to complete in order to have that smooth and successful transition to UCSB. Once the student has accepted their offer of admission, of course, we encourage students to attend orientation. We'll talk about that briefly in a little bit, submitting their official transcripts and reviewing their financial aid. So I mentioned earlier that admission to UCSB is provisional. It is conditional. And so there's a few things that are listed on the screen, but there's more to it, I promise. And I'm going to recommend that you are scanning the QR code to take a look at our admitted student webpage. And there's going to be two different buttons that are available. One is a first year conditions of admissions. The other is a transfer conditions of admissions. And reading through all of those conditions of admissions will be essential just to make sure that everything is right and tight and ready to go for your students to be able to successfully enroll into UCSB post SIR. For first year students, we are needing them. Yeah, needing them, pretty obvious, to graduate from high school. And they're graduating with that diploma. And when they are submitting their transcripts, we need to see the graduation date on their transcripts. So please don't nudge your students at this point to nudge their counselors to submit a transcript. We're not asking for transcripts at this time. We are not asking for transcripts at this time. Why? Because we need transcripts to be final and official transcripts. Final transcripts are going to include all of your students, high school students, senior year grades on that transcripts. It's going to show that they've graduated with the graduation month, date, and year. And so now's not the time. It's a little bit too early, but it's coming really soon. For my transfer students, we are going to want all community college coursework or university coursework and those official transcripts to be sent. If I have any transfer parents in the audience today, please inform your transfer students that they would need to submit a high school transcript if they did not complete a full IGETC or CalGETC certification. So I say all this to say that very soon, come mid-May for some schools up until late May, early June, high schools are going to start to close, right? And so we want to make sure that your student is requesting those official documents from all schools attended, especially if we're talking about high schools before that summer break. A part of the conditions of admissions as well is that students are maintaining a 3.0 average GPA with no grade below a C. Is a C minus okay? Technically, yes, but if your student is getting nothing but C minuses in their spring term, right, of their senior year or at their community college, well, that is now dropping below the 3.0 threshold that we have. Now, submission timelines, well, it might slightly vary, but for this group here, know that July 1st, we need all high school and college level transcripts. For my parents out there, if your student did dual enrollment or if they attended a college or university, we need those official transcripts as well. Again, from all institutions attended. If your student did an online high school through an accredited program and they reported it in their UC application, we need that transcript. July 15th, we are going to ask for exam scores. Exam scores are going to include advanced placement, international baccalaureate exam scores. And also, if I have any parents of any international students, that might also mean English language proficiency examination. While UCSB did not take into consideration SAT or ACT standardized test scores for the purposes of admissions or scholarships, we can take those into consideration now that your student has been admitted, but it's not necessarily us that's looking at it, it's the academic departments because students can utilize exam scores to meet English and mathematics placement. So know that we want all of those exam scores by July 15th, as well as transcripts by July 1st, because in the summer, we are trying to understand what potential college credit did your student receive and can receive with those exam scores of qualifying exam scores. Now, in terms of academic updates, at this stage, students should be emailing us if there were any changes based on what they originally reported in the UC application. So let's rewind a little bit and let's talk about last year. The UC application was open October through December 1st of last year. And when it closed at that point, yes, some things might have changed with your student's academic schedule, and that's okay. But at that point, we were not accepting any academic coursework changes starting in January. So January all the way through March for first year students, we at that time were not accepting any academic changes. So if a student happened to email us or give us a call, we couldn't do anything at that point. And so now is the time for students to let us know, hey, if they reported in their UC application that they were planning to take, I don't know, a geography course in their senior year spring term, but they're no longer taking it, they need to let us know. And they need to email us at admissions@ucsb.edu with the subject line academic update and include the academic updates in the body of that message along with their full name and perm. If a student got a grade below a C, so that means a grade of a D or F, again, C minus is okay, we need to know because now they've breached those terms and conditions of admission. Remember the last slide talking about students need to maintain all grades above or at a C and have a 3.0 average GPA. So these are the examples in which students should be emailing us to let us know of an academic update. Now, students do not need to submit transcripts, but it definitely helps if they can give us an unofficial transcript if there is any changes that have been made. Now, in terms of change of major on the academic front, we are definitely getting a lot of questions regarding change in major, and that is completely fine. But there are going to be some nuances with change in major requests. Now, of course, if a student is interested in pursuing another major, especially if they're first year students, but transfer students as well, they need to go ahead and email us and let us know what major would they like to change into. The nuances in the conversation is that there are going to be some majors that are considered selective, some colleges that are considered selective. And because they are selective, yes, for admissions, but also selective uh, 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 post admissions in terms of the colleges being impacted and or they consider additional supplemental materials, it may not be feasible for that student to change major. They can always request it, but a request is a request. It is not guaranteed. So if a student is trying to go into, for example, the College of Engineering, and they are a student in the College of Letters and Science, well, these are two different colleges, and the College of Engineering is highly impacted. And so while we will take in that change of major request, it's not guaranteed, and it's highly unlikely that that change of major would be granted because, again, of that impaction within engineering. If your student is a first year student, at the end of May is when we are accepting, up until the end of May is when we are accepting change of major requests. For transfer students, up until the end of June. Now, let's switch gears. We talked all things academics, academic updates, change in major. Let's go ahead and briefly talk about financial aid. I mentioned earlier that in the UCSB applicant portal, I'm going to say it again, in the UCSB applicant portal, one more time, in the UCSB applicant portal is where your student can view their financial aid award letter. The reason why I said that 3 times is because many students are going to the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships website to view their aid. And while in theory that makes sense at this stage as a newly admitted student, they are just going to want to take a look at their aid offer via the UCSB applicant portal. They're going to be able to take a look at their costs of attendance as well as any scholarships or grants that they might be eligible for. Again, it is a matter of students having completed, ideally, the FAFSA and the CADA applications by the priority deadline, which was March 2nd, and that, of course, they are eligible to receive financial aid. So they're U.S. residents or they're eligible non-residents. Now, in terms of that financial aid award letter and really driving it home one more time, where can students view it? In their UCSB applicant portal. Say it with me. If there are questions pertaining to financial aid, this is where I will, recommend that you are connecting with the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships because they are going to be able to give more insight than the Office of Admissions about your student's financial aid package. They can be reached at FinAid, that's FINAID at sa.ucsb.edu. And they also have a queueless phone system, which means that you do not have to wait on hold to talk to somebody. You're going to go to their website, which is finaid.ucsb.edu, and navigate to the Join the Line button on their website. When you click Join the Line, you'll be able to put in your student's information if they're not doing it by themselves. And then you can go ahead and input your best contact number, and they will give you a call back during their phone hours. Now, I know that was really brief on financial aid, and I only can imagine that there's so many financial aid questions, especially as we get closer to the May 1 deadline for first year admits. I'm going to encourage you and your students to watch our financial aid webinar. Take a look at it. Our Office of Financial Aid Assistant Director Stacy provided the webinar and provided a lot of great information for you and your student to review and understand. Again, I'm going to recommend you watch that webinar. And if you have follow-up questions, reaching out to the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships via their queueless phone system or via email. My international parents out there, there is going to be some steps to enrollment and a few checklist items that international students must complete in addition to those conditions of admission. So for an international student checklist, yes, my international students need to complete their SIR, but they also need to start to get some documentation together and complete their I-20 or DS 2019 requests. They're also going to want to work with our Office of International Student Scholars, also known as OISS, to determine what visa type is best for them to become a UCSB student. Are they going to be on a J1 or an F1 visa? We're also going to be recommending that at this time they're obtaining their immigration documents and having that information together because it will be requested in their preparation to arrive to UCSB. There's also going to be an orientation, and we'll talk our general orientation in just a little bit, but a specific orientation for my international student scholars, as well as a CALI training, which is cultural awareness, laws, and immigration. And these are going to be topics that really have some importance for international students so that they feel comfortable and confident as they acclimate to not just a new university, but a new country, right? So there are going to be a lot of steps to complete in addition to those conditions of admission. If there are any questions about some of the information that is on the screen for my international students and parents of international students, I'm going to recommend that you're going to OISS at sa.ucsb.edu. Now, orientation for my first year students. it's going to be a good time. Orientation as a whole is going to be optional at UCSB, but highly, highly encouraged. Now, for orientation, I'm going to briefly go over this information, but I promise you, yep, we did a webinar. Yep, there's resources online on our orientation webpage. But for first year orientation, there are going to be two in-person experiences, 2-day in-person experiences, or if your student is not able to come to UCSB, they're going to have the option to join the 2-day virtual orientation sessions. During this time, in person and or virtual, students are going to be able to receive some academic advising. They're going to hear from different campus departments. The campus departments will include their academic departments, but also resource departments. Everything from, yep, we mentioned Office of International Student Scholars as a potential resource, but Educational Opportunity Program. They're going to hear from ONDAS for any students that might be first generation students. They're going to hear from Student Health. They're going to hear from a lot of different campus departments so that they have a better understanding of what those resources are, again, to assist them with acclimating to coming to UCSB. Now, for orientation, especially in person, this is going to be a great time for students to meet new friends, make new connections even before they actually get started on campus at UCSB. And then they're also going to hear about ways in which they can get involved on campus, whether that might be athletics, campus organizations, our recreation department, volunteering, student engagement, and leadership opportunities. So this is going to be a really robust program, again, to better acclimate students to that transition from coming out of high school, my first year students out there, into the university. Now, orientation is going to open for their registration portal on May 16th. May 16th, May 16th, May 16th. And there are going to be those 2-day session options and 2-day online options. As mentioned before, my international students, you have a 1-day international orientation session and you have 2 dates to choose from. If I have any parents and supporters out there that have a student that's a part of the College of Creative Studies, there are going to be special sessions for the College of Creative Studies for orientation. So as we take a look at all of the orientation session dates, which are also available on their website, and of course you can scan that QR code to go to the session dates, you will see asterisks next to session dates that are for College of Creative Studies students. Now, the question is, does it benefit a student to attend session 1, or would it be a detriment for a student to attend session 2? And the answer is no, for both. It is not a benefit for students to join session 1, and it will not be a detriment to attend session 10. It really is based on your students' availability and their summer schedules and your availability if you decide to attend orientation, which yes, parents are invited to attend orientation for a fee, but you're invited to join your student. What is going to happen during orientation, especially as we're talking about signing up for classes, because yes, students get to register for their fall quarter classes during orientation, is that by we, I mean orientation is saving a select number of seats and that same exact select number for every session for all of the academic course offerings that a first year student may need, which means the same course offerings would be available for the session 10, the last in-person session, as it would be for session number 1. So there really is no priority of, yes, if I get into the June 25th and 26th sessions, I'm going to be able to register for more classes, or there's going to be space availability for those classes. No, 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 no. That is not the case. Please register for a session that makes sense for your summer schedules. Lastly, that orientation does fill. So if you have an interest, students out there, to join orientation, again, it's optional. We're going to encourage you, and I'm going back a slide, to be sure to register. Yes, and you can register on May 16th. That's fine. But register earlier. The earlier, the better. The earlier, the better. That way you do not miss a spot in orientation. Okay. Moving right along to transfer orientation, kind of the same name to the game, but for transfers, it's going to be a 1 day in-person program, 1 day only. Transfer students are invited to spend the night because it is a 1 day orientation instead of the 2 day for freshmen. Transfer students can spend the night the day before orientation if they have that preference. That way they feel rested and can do the full day orientation and then depart back to their home. Now, transfer orientation is going to be two parts. One part is going to be the online module that transfer students must complete, and part two would be the in-person option. Now, the in-person transfer orientation is optional, just like freshmen, but the online module is something that transfer students definitely need to complete, especially as they're talking about registering for courses. Now, for transfer orientation, registration is going to open the same date that it does for freshmen on that May 16th date. And the in-person sessions are going to be August 10th through the 14th. And then also for my transfer parents out there, you're more than welcome to attend transfer orientation with your student. Now, I know that there's questions popping off in the Q&A about orientation, and I get it. But know that we had a webinar on orientation a few weeks ago, I think about a week and a half ago. And so you can watch that recording on our YouTube channel. This is going to be a really great resource and tool for you to get some of your questions answered. And of course, you can always reach out to our office or the orientation department's office if you have any questions. All right, we have freshman summer start. Now, the freshman summer start program, if you have not heard of it, parents and supporters out there, is going to be a summer transition program of sorts where students are able to take academic UCSB courses over the summer. They're able to move in early in the summer, and they're able to take up to 60 undergraduate courses that will be applicable to their degree progress. So these courses are going to be, yes, a transition course so students can better understand different resources and be able to acclimate to UCSB. But the other courses available are going to be general education courses that will be helpful for students that are maybe seeking to graduate slightly earlier. A really great thing for any of my parents that are out there that happen to be outside of the state of California is that for any summer session, including freshman summer start, you, i.e., the student, is paying in-state tuition costs over the summer. So this is really great if students are looking, especially my out-of-state students are looking to save a little bit of money by taking UCSB coursework over the summer during freshman summer start program. They also get to know their faculty members a little bit better. They get to have a smaller classroom environment. They get to connect with their peers, and they only have to move in once. One time. And then they get to stay in that housing accommodation, which historically has been St. Nick, throughout their entire freshman year. So if there's any student that has already SIR'd, so submitted their SIR and is interested in the freshman summer start program, your student can apply. The application has been open since April 13th, and the deadline to apply would be June 30th. Your student is also getting emails from us about freshman summer start, and so that will be very helpful that they reference the emails that we shared about FSSP. Now, the program dates for FSSP are going to be August 1st through September 12th. And you might be scratching your head thinking, wow, September 12th, that's considered summer. And it technically is. Move-in for all of our students is the 19th of September through the 20th. And so we're on a quarter system, which means that classes actually start a little bit later. They start in September 24th for this year, so late September. So students can still enjoy some of their summer in June and July, and then do FSSP in August through September 12th. Now, FSSP is going to provide a parent webinar very similar to this one, but guess what? They're so much more detailed about freshman summer start than I am. And so I'm going to encourage my parents and supporters out there to scan the QR code, register for this parent and supporter session. It is happening May 7th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right, I can feel it. I haven't even looked at the Q&A at this point, but I just know that there's probably a lot of housing questions. And guess what? We have a webinar for that. I've already told you this, but I'm also going to try to hopefully answer some of your questions that you might have asked. We will see. We will see. We will see. So campus housing, let's go ahead and talk about it. Now at UCSB, we have residential halls and apartment style complexes that are available for our students. My students that are coming in as a first year freshman student will be in a residence hall. Those residence halls are typically triples and quads. We do have all around, both for freshmen and transfers, very limited single and double options. So please, work with your students in kind of leveling out their expectations for when they get into campus housing. It's likely that they are going to have two other roommates and then themselves. So three people total, if not four. Now, the benefit for UCSB is that we do have guaranteed housing for all incoming students their first year. We have a couple of new housing developments on the way. One of them is the San Benito housing project that's going to provide up to 2,000 bed spaces. So we're really excited about that housing project because it might potentially be an opportunity for students to be able to have that guarantee extended beyond that first year. But for now, all we can promise is guaranteed housing for that first year. For students that are interested in staying on campus housing beyond their first year, they still need to submit that housing application, and they're going to want to do it in the winter quarter of their freshman year so that they are expressing that interest in housing. And we hope to be able to provide them a space for housing, but if we are not able to accommodate that housing during their sophomore year or their second or continuing year, we will work with them. University housing will be able to support them in finding a location outside of campus within the community. Now, there are options for students to go into the dining commons. For freshman students, they are going to have a dining plan because within their accommodations in the residence halls, while they do have kitchens and refrigerators and all of the things that they need to cook, it is not going to be in their actual living space. So we need to feed your students. Yes, freshman 15 is a real thing, and they're going to gain that 15 pounds in the dining commons because it's all you care to eat. Additional amenities for this campus housing contract is going to include a 9-month housing contract. So 9 months will include September all the way through May. It excludes the summertime for that housing contract. And it also is going to include wireless internet access. We are going to keep the space clean. We provide housekeeping and the furnishings. If you are curious to know, for freshman students, we have twin XL beds for any of the beds in the residence hall spaces. So as you and your student are trying to understand different campus housing options, know that we do have this QR code on the screen that will take you to our campus housing options website, where you can take a look at all of the different housing options, residential halls, apartments, and all of the different amenities that those spaces may provide. Now, as students are working through the UCSB campus housing application, and I forgot to mention, so I'll say it now, housing is optional. It is not required for incoming students to stay on campus, but it's optional. They can complete that housing application to express their interest in staying on campus, and the housing application is free. Now, within the housing application, they're going to be able to indicate their potential living and roommate preferences. There's going to be a few questions that you're seeing on the right-hand side that will give other students indicators of how your student is living and typically lives in their own room. And your student will be able to put their own individual preferences for a particular roommate as well. So you can see on the screen, I prefer substance-free living. I may be a smoker. So if I'm getting a roommate, they need to be aware of that. But I want to say that UCSB is tobacco free, but the reality is there may be some students out there that are still doing that, but they're not able to on campus. There also is questions like, I'm extremely tidy, yes or no? I use my room to study. I'm not super social. And so students, as they're going through these questions, really need to be honest with themselves because this is a potential roommate matching opportunity. If your student hasn't already expressed who they would like to live with, yes, they can put their preference of their roommate. We will do the roommate matching if they have not already indicated a specific roommate. In addition to the housing application, they're going to be able to list out if they would like to join a LLC. That is a living learning community. LLCs are a really great way to build community, especially building community with students that have similar interests, students that have similar backgrounds. And so there are various different LLCs, 14 in total. You're seeing a few of them on the screen. LLCs range from academic focus to culture focus to identity focus. And so students can express their interest in joining a specific LLC so that when they come to the university, they are staying and roommating with people that have similar interests, similar identities as well. Now, let's talk briefly on the housing timeline. There's going to be two dates in place. Know that the date on the left is going to be specific for mainly first year students. The date on the right is going to be transfer. So in mid-March, typically after we've released admission decisions, housing applications open. In mid-April, transfer housing application opens. So needless to say, we're at the end of April, the housing application is open. May 1st is going to be the SIR deadline for my first year students and June 1st for transfers. After a student submits their SIR, at that point, give it about 24, 48 hours, they can now go ahead and submit their housing application if they are interested in staying on campus. The housing application deadline is May 15th for first year students, June 15th for transfer. Now, there is going to start to be some penalties later down the line financially if a student were to back out and say they no longer want to stay on campus. So your student submitted the housing application and then maybe they found other friends that they want to roommate with and they decide to get an apartment, right? Or rent an apartment. Well, they've already completed the housing application. So they need to let campus housing know that they will not be staying on campus. And they need to let campus housing know before that July 15th deadline. Otherwise, an $100 fee will incur. By September 1st, that fee is now going to be more than doubled to $350. So they do need to let campus housing know because by completing that housing application, they're ultimately agreeing to stay on campus. Now, August 13th is when students are going to receive their formal assignments. Those formal assignments will include their roommates as well as their campus housing, residential hall, or apartment style complex, depending on the level of that incoming student. And then move-in weekend is September 19th through the 20th. So you can mark your calendars, you can make your flight plans, you can book your hotels, my parents out there. That is going to be the move-in weekend dates. Now, that was 3 slides on housing, and I know you all have more questions on housing. And I wish I could get to them, and we might be able to get to some of them, but know that we are having a transfer campus housing webinar, and that is actually coming up. I'm sorry it didn't get the specific date. I believe May 6th at 5 p.m., but I'll ask my colleagues to triple check on that date for me. And then on the right-hand side, we had our first year campus housing webinar recording. And I encourage my parents out there to view that because it really goes into detail about all of the fun and nuanced things of campus housing. Wrapping up our presentation for today before we go into additional Q&A, we have virtual open house and it happened. It's passed. But at this point, we have a lot of recordings of those sessions, everything from the Letters in Science Honors Program to technology management for any student that's interested in business and entrepreneurship, to our Office of International Student Scholars, EOP, Educational Opportunity Program, as well as a few faculty lectures. So your student has a better understanding of what the UCSB experience might be in a classroom. We also continue to host admitted student events that your student can register for on their UCSB applicant portal. There are virtual admitted student open Q&As that my colleague Kennedy is hosting weekly. And then we also have admitted student Q&As for transfer students that are coming up. And then there are going to be, of course, in-person tours and presentations and virtual options that are available. In terms of in-person for my transfer parents out there, transfer open house. If you haven't already marked your calendar, please mark your calendar because it's happening next Friday, May 8th, and that's going to be happening from 10 to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you or your student haven't already registered to come to our campus and experience UCSB and what we have to offer in terms of academics, in terms of research, in terms of campus clubs and organizations, please join Transfer Open House. This event is specific for transfer admitted students and transfer prospective students. Now, here is a summary of those dates and deadlines, and I know I mentioned a lot of them. So, feel free to take a picture of this slide. I do want to leave some time that we do have left for Q&A, but I know my colleagues have been typing away at some of the questions, and I appreciate them so much. But it looks like they got through majority of the questions, so maybe I will take a stab at a few others. Kuka, do you want to feed me some of those questions?
I would love to.
Okay.
Hi, friends. Okay, you've asked many, and thank you for asking questions. Here's one that I think would be great to ask out loud, which is my student has an IEP or a 504 plan. At what point can we work through getting them support since they've committed to UCSB?
Yeah, fair question. And I'm going to recommend for students that may have an IEP that they're working with our acronyms. Oh my gosh, why am I missing on the
ESP.
acronym? Thank you, DSP. Appreciate it. Disability Services Program. They are going to be able to assist with getting some of that documentation, understanding what students may need in terms of support. So that is going to be where I'm going to recommend, and I'm happy to share that link into the chat, or if my colleague can, that will be helpful for students to understand that that resource is available to them. But we do need some documentation so that we can better understand what those needs might be.
And I'll just toss in one extra fact for you,
Sure.
and that is our DSP office and the director of that program will send an email out in June to students that will give them instructions and deadlines and things to that nature. So our students, which have said, yes, I'm coming, should be looking out for that email in the month of June. Cool. Okay, next question. I'm a little panicked. My student said yes to UCSB today. Yay.
Yay!
And they're working on their statement of legal residency. It says that the deadline is tomorrow. What do I do? Help.
We've gotten that question a few times, and we get it. At this point, you've just submitted your SIR, but now we're asking for statement of legal residency documentation. And so, what I'm going to firstly recommend is that those students that might have those questions are reaching out to our residency deputy at ucsb.edu, a part of the Office of the Registrar. Part two is that we really have a priority deadline of May 1st. And by we, I say the Office of the Registrar. So we're going to ask for those documents, as many documents to be submitted by May 1st as possible. If you need an extension for that deadline, again, that's where you're reaching out to residency deputy and again, residency deputy at ucsb.edu to inform them that you are getting those documentation together so that they can determine how are you going to be classified as a resident for tuition purposes.
I'm gonna give you the down low, my friends. Your students said yes to us. They've got their space. Their space is guaranteed. Uh, we will not cancel your student because the SLR didn't come through by tomorrow, May 1st. Got it? Yes, you can say Kuka said that. All right. Some questions around the net ID. So my student has a UMail. Does that mean that they also have a net ID?
Yeah, that actually technically means that they do have a net ID. And so I know that the terminology can be a little bit confusing, but students automatically will receive access to their UMail, which is pretty much a Google email for them, but it is their student email. The net ID in itself is just a form of identification for your student. It provides them with access to different systems in UCSB that we utilize. So it's twofold. As soon as a student creates their net ID, they will receive a UMail. they should be accessing that email because they're going to start receiving email communications externally from departments other than the Office of Admissions.
Correct. I put it in the chat, but I'm going to say this out loud. The UMail, aka the university email, is the official communication with your student. If they said, "Oh, I never got that, but we sent it through UMail, they just never checked it," that's not a valid reason for missing a deadline. I said it out loud, my friends. Now you know what they know, and they had to read about university email. Okay, next question. So my student took a gap year. They've completed high school. Can I send those transcripts now?
I mean, yeah, we will take them, but I will say we may not process them until summer, to be fair. If your student has already graduated, send it our way. Okay, we know that it's final, we know that it's official. If your student took a true gap year, that also means that they haven't completed any college level coursework, right? If I'm talking to a high school student's parents. So they can go ahead and send that high school transcript in addition to any additional transcripts. So if they did dual enrollment during their time in high school, if they did any online coursework, send it all in. We will take it. That includes AP exam scores. We will not wait, but we will start processing transcripts closer to the July timeframe.
I'll throw out, it usually takes us 10 to 15 business days to process a transcript starting in May. And so if transcripts come in and you've got your student who sent them, do not resend them. Please and thank
Please
you.
and thank you.
Yes. So I'll add that if your student has no longer completed community college work, they've completed an institution. If your student has a high school that is not their graduating high school that they're no longer registered for, all of those documents can come in through one of two veins, the approved electronic vendor and or through the mail, but that mail has to be from the official school. You cannot email us transcripts.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. All right. So I love this one. So we were loving orientation questions, but the big one on the orientation front was the question around accommodations. So as a parent or guardian, if I want to join my student at orientation, am I staying in the residence halls with them?
You will not be staying in the residence halls with your student. I'm so sorry. You're going to have to let their hand go and stay in a hotel, which means if you're thinking about joining orientation with your student, know that your student will be able to stay in campus housing, but you will not be able to. So I'm going to recommend that if you're thinking about orientation and making your travel plans, book a hotel. Hopefully, maybe you'll have some family or friends in the nearby area, stay with them. But parents are not able to join their student in campus housing.
And I would also look at the orientation website to see if apartment opportunities within university apartments are accessible to you. The university has the club, which is
Good
our
point.
mini
Yeah.
hotel on campus. Those are all options for you. All right, I love this one. Do you recommend parents attend orientation? And I'm going to add this, it's not in the chat. I don't want to. Like, I think that's what this was. Like, the parent doesn't want to come.
I think it's subjective, it's situational. Parents, if you're available to come, sure, why not? Some parents, this is not your first rodeo of sending your student off to college. Like you have an understanding. But some parents, this might be the first time sending their babies to college, and there's some nerves with that. So if you would like to join, you have the option too. No, yes, I mentioned earlier that there's a cost associated. But there are going to be some sessions that are specifically catered to parents, and there are sessions that you can sit in with your student. This is, one of those times where students are trying to find their footsteps and they're trying to get acclimated, but it's also a time where parents are trying to find their footsteps and get acclimated. And so hearing from different campus departments and resource centers and being able to see the campus, you might have a sense of relief there. So again, I'm say it's subjective. You might feel compelled to join. Are you required to join? No. If you're not available to join, it's okay. You're not a horrible parent. But that's how I feel about it. Kuka, do you have anything to add to that?
I actually get to do a workshop sometimes during orientation for my Spanish speaking families. I love seeing the parents that are there. They're great, they're chill, but you're not with your student during the enrollment process and their registration process. You're on your own doing your workshops. If that's why you're coming is because you want to sit next to your student to register for their classes, it's not going to happen. If you want to be there to support, great. I'd say roughly half of the students I see have a parent or someone coming with them. That also means that half don't. So don't feel guilty. You are a fabulous parent. You got your kid supported and they got admitted to UCSB. They're coming. So you did good, mama. You did good, papa. You did good, auntie. All right, we are at time. So I will say here is the final thing to point out. Today's recording will be posted on our parents and supporters webpage. You'll find additional opportunities to ask us questions through the UCSB admissions email account. I hope that as you're going through these different workshops and webinars, your questions are being answered. If we missed anything, feel free to send it to us via email. I want to say thank you to Javon for doing a great job and giving us a whole bunch of information in a short period of time. I want to welcome everyone once again to the UCSB family. Bienvenidos a todos. Estamos aquí para celebrarlos a ustedes y sus estudiantes. We want to celebrate you and your students. So with that, have a great evening, everyone.
Bye.